Alright, so in the last video, we stopped at figure 3.50. Now we're going to move on to making some edits to this interior wall. So following figure 3.50, there is only one thing left to do before you leave this section. Select the 2-hour fire-rated partition wall that is constrained only to level 2. Now you've opened up this area, the wall can go up to level 3. To constrain the top of this wall to corridor parapet, follow these steps. Select the internal white wall with the arched opening as shown previously in figure 3.50. You can see I already have it selected here. In the properties dialog box, change the top constraint up to level corridor parapet. So I'm going to grab my properties and pull them over here on the screen so you can see them. And we're going to change top constraint up to level corridor parapet. Why do I want to do it this way as opposed to dragging it? Because I want to be accurate, right? So the most accurate way is to tell the top of the wall I want it to go to that level. Item 3, the partition wall now meets the brick exterior wall. In the properties browser, double-click the level 3 floor plan view. We're going to double-click that. And I'm going to move this properties dialog box just off to the second screen so we have more real estate over here. Item 5, change the detail level to fine. Remember, this option is in the view control bar at the bottom of the screen. That's right here, right? We've done this several times at this point. So we're just going to click on that and change the detail level to fine. On the view tab, click the section button. We're going to go up to view. We're going to click the section button. So we're about to create another section, right? Place a section as shown in figure 3.52. And you can see that that is a section cutting in this direction looking towards the building. So we're going to go ahead and do that. It's facing the right way, and we know by this blue line that that's the view extents. It appears that that will work for us. In the project browser, right-click the new section and rename it West Wing South Wall Section. So if you navigate down here, you see sections. The last one's named. We want to rename this. Oh, double-clicked on it. Come back here. I want to right-click on this, hit rename, and I can simply type in West Wing South Wall Section. You'll notice that it updates the name here in the project browser. Adding entire building sections is a great way to break down the model quickly into large segments. Another type of section, a wall section, enables you to view smaller portions of the items being detailed. We're going to move on to adding a wall section. A wall section is basically the same as a building section. The only difference is that when you place a wall section, Revit holds the extents to a much smaller area. When you add a building section, Revit wants to extend to the farthest geometry. That being said, a wall section is usually placed to show only the item being cut, but not the geometry beyond. To place a wall section, excuse me. That cough, I just can't get rid of it. To place a wall section, follow these procedures. Item 1, double-click the level 1 in the project browser. That will bring us to level 1. Well, you'll notice that our building section goes down to. Item 2, on the View tab, pick the section button, the same one you picked for the building section. Okay. In the Properties dialog box, select Wall Section. Let me pull this over here so you can see it. So we can click down in here. We can tell it that we don't want it to be a building section. We want it to be a wall section. We're just giving Revit some more information about exactly what we want it to do.
So we click on the section we just made?
No. In the Properties dialog box,
Yes.
you click right up here in your type selector. So you can have a detailed view, a building section, or a wall section. You want to select the wall section. Let me drag this back off screen. If you need further clarification on it, your book figure 3.53 shows you. That being said, a wall section is usually placed to show only the item being cut, not the geometry beyond. Well, we already did that. I'm sorry. Item 4. Add the section through the corridor wall that was modified in the previous section of the chapter, shown in figure 3.54. So just right here, we're going to place a wall section. Now the symbol looks very similar, right? Yeah, this symbol looks very similar to this symbol. What you're going to notice is this symbol, the arrow is filled in. This symbol, the arrow is not filled in. You're also going to notice when if I click on this, it has a very small view area. Essentially, there's a wall section and a building section. And what you're going to notice now is a wall section area has been added to your project browser. See that where we have a building section and a wall section? This just helps you organize it in greater detail. Right-click the new section in the project browser in its category called Section Wall Sections and select Rename. We're going to open this up. We're going to rename it. And we're going to rename it Corridor Entry Section. And we'll hit OK. We're also going to change the scale of the wall section because typically wall sections are larger drawings because they show more information. So where a building section or floor plan might be at 1/8 of an inch, it makes more sense that a wall section would be at 1/2 of an inch or even 3/4 of an inch. The book asks us to change it to 1 inch equals a foot. We do that just by clicking down here. You'll see all these scales come up, and we're simply going to say, oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I need to do it over here in the need to do it in the actual section. Make sure you don't have, see here where properties changed, I'm in the ceiling plan. That's not good. That's not really where I want to be when I change this. I want to make sure this says wall section. And I can change that view scale to 1/2 of an inch equals a foot. Hit apply. That didn't change anything in the view that we're in right now, right? But it will and did change the view of the actual wall section. You'll see that here in a moment. So again, I'm going to move properties off the screen. Change the detail level to fine. Alright, so let's go into the actual wall section, and you'll see that how small the annotation is in comparison to the wall. Because as the view gets larger, the annotation gets smaller. Because all annotation, when it prints on a sheet, should be the same. So annotation on an 1/8 inch plan should be the same size as annotation on a 1/2 inch plan. Does that make sense? Revit's actually scaling it for you. Back in the old AutoCAD days, you had to actually scale all your annotation yourself. This makes it much, much easier. We're going to change the detail level down here from coarse to fine. And you'll notice that a bunch more lines show up in this wall section. Figure 3.55 is what this should look like, and for the most part it does. And it asks us to save the model. And simply we can do that by coming up here and saying File, Save. You're narrowing down the types of sections you can use, and it's time to venture into a specific type of section that can enable you to create a planned section detail. Creating detailed sections. There's a third type of section we need to discuss, the detail section. Revit refers to this type of section as a detail view, so that's how we'll start addressing it. To add a detail section, perform the following steps. Item 1, open the view called Corridor Entry Section if you don't already have it open. We have it open, and we know we have it open because it's highlighted right here. Item 2, on the View tab, select Section. Yes, the same section you've been using all along. We're going to select Section. But in the Properties dialog this time, we're going to change that section from a wall section to a detail view. Item 4, place the section horizontally below the head of the opening as shown in figure 3.56. Make sure the section is flipped so it's looking downwards. Alright, so we're going to come in here.
It shows it's below that.
And we want to flip it, right? So that it's looking downwards. In the project browser is a new category called Detail View. You'll notice here we had section, building section, section, wall section, and now we have a new category, Detail Views, Detail. Expand the tree and you'll see a new detail. It's usually called Detail 0 depending on the number of details that have been added to the model previously. Right-click Detail 0 and select Rename. We want to rename this Plan Detail at Corridor Opening. And hit OK. Open the Plan Detail at Corridor Opening view. Change the scale to 1.5 inches equals a foot. Alright, so we're going to click on that. This gives us a section of that, and we're going to change that scale over here. Just like it was changed in the properties, it's just another way of getting to the same place. There we go. With the detail open, you may be able to see only 2 dashed lines. This is because the crop region needs to be expanded as explained in the next section. Using crop regions, the border that surrounds the detail is called crop region. It dictates the extent of the specific view you're in. You can adjust this crop region and use it to your advantage. To learn how to make adjustments to the crop region, follow the steps. Select the window surrounding the detail. As shown in figure 3.57. You see 4 blue dot grips at the midpoints of each line. Pick the top grips and stretch the top region until you can see the opening of the jam. That might be too tall. We have to go down a little bit. Appears I have the wrong view. Hold on 1 second.
We didn't put it down. It's supposed to be between level 1 and 2 and 2 and 4.
Oh, is that what I did? Alright, very simple. This is also your view region. I could either drag this down or I can move this whole thing just by grabbing the modify and move. And there we go. So again, in Revit, do we delete things if we don't have to? Modify them. Get into the habit of modifying them. I still don't think that that's exactly doing what I want it to do. But, so let's make a small change to what they've asked us to do here. Because I think our view is actually in the wrong type of view. We're going to go back to our corridor entry section. They want us to see this, right? There's another way to do this. We can simply go to a call out. I like to do call outs. Always call out from the corner. I'm going to try to keep this as straight as possible. And now I can see the head, right? There's a couple different views. So did you see how the section was more of a plan view and this is more of an enlarged wall section detail? So this call out view that we just showed you can be used on plans, it can be used on sections. It can be a rectangle like we showed you, or it could be sketched in any shape that you would like it to be sketched in. So let's get back to where we were. Repeat the procedures for the bottom so you can see the entire opening. This would be the same thing. We could open this so we could see the entire opening if we wanted to. So that would be in a large section. And if we go to this corridor opening, it's talking about this opening, but our wall doesn't look like it's in the right. I got a view range issue. So let's go back to our corridor entry section. Okay, I seem to have lost this. So when I run into a problem like this where the book isn't making sense, what should I do? Back up a couple steps, right? So to show you that this actually works, I'm going to back up a couple steps. What's the last thing that we did that we know was successful? Yeah, so let's delete this section. Detail 0, yep, get rid of that. I'm going to delete the other section that we created. I know up to this point that I'm pretty much where I need to be in the book, correct? This is figure 3.55. I'm going to go back and I'm going to reread because it's likely that I just made a minor mistake. Creating a detail section. There's a third type of section we need to discuss. The detail section, Revit refers to this type of section as a detailed view. So that's how we'll start addressing it. To add a detail section, perform the following steps. Open the view called corridor entry section. Okay, I'm good up to that point, right? You all agree? Yep. Item 2, on the view tab, select the section. Okay, I'm good up to that point. Would you agree? Yes. Item 3, in the properties dialog box, select detail view detail. I have that selected. Item 4, place a section horizontally below the head of the opening as shown in figure 3.56. So let's look at 3.56. It really wants me to place the section right about here. Would you agree? Okay. And the book notes, let's see. Project Browser is a new category called detail. Didn't it tell me I had to flip that a minute ago? Make sure the section is flipped so it's looking downward. We know that it's not. We know that this blue box represents what it's looking at, so it's looking up. So we want to flip that so it's looking down. We're all good with that? Alright, and that matches figure 3.56. In the project browser is a new category called Detail View Detail. We agree with that. We agree it's named Detail 0. We're going to right click on that and rename it. And we're going to call this Plan Detail at Corridor Opening. Okay. Then it asks us to open this view. So I'm going to double click here and it's going to open the view. This is looking much more like what it's supposed to look like, correct? Change the scale to 1.5 inches equals a foot. Alright, we're going to change that scale. 1.5 inches equals a foot. Hit apply. We notice the dashing and those lines changed. With the detail open, you may be able to see only 2 dashed lines. We actually can see the whole jam, but we're going to click on this anyway to show you the crop region. And this crop region allows me to adjust how much is seen of that drawing. Repeat the procedure for the bottom so you can see the entire opening. Alright, so there's an opening there. Now are we on the same page with the book? Yeah, so it's very simple to make one deviation from the book and end up in a place where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, it doesn't look right, it's not acting the way I want it to. Don't panic, simply back up a few steps. I don't know how many times I've gone through this book, but even as many times as I've gone through the book, it's easy to skip a step. Is that helpful for everyone? Good. Everybody's with me at this point. So now we have something that looks like figure 3.58. With the crop region still selected, notice the break icon similar to the make elbow icon in the level markers. Pick the break icon. I'm talking about these right here. What happened? Yeah, it just took out the stuff that was the same. This is actually a pretty useful tool. With the cropped regions are blue move icons. If you don't see blue icons as shown in figure 3.59, you need to select the crop region again. All right, these are move icons, right? If I roll over it, it will tell me that it's a move the view region. So I can pull these things together. And if I wanted to balance this out, I could say, hey, I really want to see more of that, or less of that, and more of this. Am I actually changing the geometry of the model? No, I'm not changing the size of that opening in the drawing or the model. I'm just changing how I view it. And there's no reason to show all this information in between because it's the same. Does that make sense? Yes. All right, very good. Item 6, slide the sections closer together by clipping the top icon and moving the section down. Item 7, save the model. You now have nice control over how the details are shown. Let's go back and learn how to make the section marker more aesthetically pleasing. All right. We're going to move on to the next task. Splitting a section segment. One more section item and then you're finished. Sometimes you need to split or jog a section. You do this to show things that aren't necessarily in line with one another. You can accomplish this in Revit Architecture as follows. Open the Level 1 floor plan. We would do that by navigating here in the project browser to Level 1 under Floor Plans. And we have our Level 1 floor plan. On the View tab, click the Section button. You can also grab a section from the Quick Access toolbar. This is the Section button in the Quick Access toolbar. I'm used to just getting it from the View toolbar. It is the same tool. It's just two different ways to get to the same tool. In the Type Selector, select Building Section. You'll notice that it still has Detail View. That's because the last section we drew was a Detail View section. So we're just going to come here to the Type Selector, change that to Building Section, and I'm going to move this off the screen. Pick a point above the corridor that connects to the east wing of the building. For this section, head, and then pick a point well below the bottom of the corridor, as shown in Figure 3.60. They want us to create a section here, and just pull it straight down. In the project browser, find the section you just made and rename it East Corridor Section. Well, if we navigate down to Building Sections, and rename Section 1 to East Corridor Section. We're going to hit OK. Help if I spell that correctly. Hit OK. Select the new section marker. On the Section panel, the Modify Views tab, click the Split Section Segment button. So we have Modify Views up here. We can modify the crop. We can split segment right there. And you see now we have a little scalpel icon. Pick a point along the section line just below the corridor as shown in Figure 3.61. Alright, we're going to pick a point right there. Now you see it's activated a new tool, right? Or basically it's activated a way for me to cut that section line and move it. Move your cursor to the right. A jog appears in the section. Place the jog into the building. The section is now jogged into the building. Press Escape twice and hit clear. So I'm just going to jog this into the building here. You'll see that my section line now has a jog in it. Now, you notice I still have the scalpel, so my command's still active, so what do I want to do? Hit Escape twice. And now I have jogged a section. And you can actually adjust that jog with these blue grips if you needed to adjust it at this point. Not a tool you're going to use often, but sometimes it's very functional. All right, ready to move on? Great. Creating callouts. Creating a large area of your model will be a task on every project you tackle. Luckily, in Revit Architecture, not only are callouts easy to add to your model, but they also directly link to the view to which they refer. This is crucial for project coordination. Another nice thing about callouts is that they can make modifications to the callout view independent of the host view from which you pulled the information. The biggest change you make is the scale. Yes, your callout can be at a different scale from the main floor plan. Here's the procedure for adding callouts. In the project browser, under Section, Wall Section, open the Corridor Entry Wall section. We kind of already went through this task, but we're going to go through it again. Find the View tab on the ribbon. We have the View tab active. On the View tab, click the callout button as shown in Figure 3.6. I'm going to click the callout button. Item 4. Pick a window around the area where the corridor firewall meets the exterior wall with the brick facade as shown in Figure 3.6 right here. In the project browser, there's a new section wall section item. Its name is callout of corridor entry wall section. So we see this? Callout 1, corridor entry wall section. Press escape. Select the callout you just added by picking any point along the line. A bunch of blue grips appear. So we're going to hit escape here. I'm going to select this. And you see a bunch of grips. They'll let me adjust the view, either make it larger or smaller. They'll let me move my elbows around. Like I said, I like to have my callouts just generally at one of 4 corners. Either one of these 4 corners is where I like to have callouts. It's just a drawing convention, so everybody knows anytime there's a detail callout like this, they're going to find the information at one of the 4 corners. That's not necessary, it's just my preference. So it's asked us to make this a little bit larger and move our bubble from this corner, or from midpoint here, to this corner. So we can do that by clicking this, just simply moving it. These will be a little tricky to deal with when you first start dealing with them. But you'll get used to how the bubbles move around. Alright. Item 9. Pick the blue midpoint of the grip on the leader and create an elbow, as shown in Figure 3.64. We've done that. Item 10. In the project browser, find callout of corridor entry section under Section and open the view. You can also just double click right here. Change the scale from to 1.5 inches equals a foot. And you'll notice when we did that, the text got smaller. Type WT. This will tile all the views that you have open. I got quite a few views open right now, as you can see. The callout window is selected in the corridor entry selection, along with the crop region in your callout. That's because the 2 objects are one and the same. What he means by that, I'm going to move this off so you guys can see this, is if I select, I got too much going on here. Let me close some of these views that we don't need to see. Detail plan view, we don't need that section. Resize it. I just typed WT again. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close all of this. Oh, cancel that. You gotta have at least one view open. I'm going to pull my project browser back over here. And I'm going to open my corridor entry section and my corridor entry section callout. So we'll have that open. I'm going to put that up there. And I'm going to go to my callout. Put that up there. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. And now I'm going to type WT. I'm going to get rid of this view and type WT again. And as I select this, you'll notice this got selected. Does everybody see that? And as I move this grip here, what happened over here? Change the crop view. And as I move the crop view on this side, what happens? It changes over here. It's the same item. Does that make sense? Yep, good. That's what the book is trying to show you there. Save them on. Now you've created a callout for a detail, let's go to the plan and create some callouts there. It would be nice to have some typical lavatory callouts as well as a typical elevator callout. In the project browser, go to level 1. So I'm going to close this and maximize this view. And in my project browser, I'm going to navigate to level 1. Zoom in on the area shown in figure 3.67, which is essentially this area. Item 3, on the View tab, click Select Callout. Callout, great. Pick window around the lavatory or restroom, right? This is very typical to have an enlarged plan of your restroom. Now, just out of habit, I'm going to go ahead and move this up already. This stuff drives me nuts, just having it not be straight. So I'm going to encourage you to be detailed about that. In the project browser, under the floor plan category, is a callout of level 1. You can see it, level 1 hyphen callout. Right click and select rename. We're going to rename this Typical Men's Lavatory. The idea being that if this gets built on multiple floors, you really only need one plan. You don't need to repeat that information. Open the Typical Men's Lavatory view. Choose Zoom to Fit. And basically, I'm going to do that by typing ZE. Hit cancel here. That will zoom all. ZA will zoom all. But what I'm really going to do is just zoom in here for you for right now. Save the model. Open the level floor plan, create a callout for the women's restroom. So again, we're going to go back here to level 1. And I'm going to grab callout again. Create that. I probably want the door swing in that view. And I can move this down here. Again, it's called out as level 1 callout 1. We're going to rename that to Typical Woman's. And you want to get in the habit of naming stuff right away, because if you put 30 callouts on your floor plan, what is level 1 or level 1 callout 27? Nobody's going to know. It's going to be very confusing. So get in the habit of naming things and keeping your project browser very organized. Nobody's going to not recognize Typical Women's Lavatory or Typical Men's Lavatory. Create one more callout around the elevator shaft in the east wing as shown in figure 3.68. So let's go back to level 1. And we're going to create a callout around this area. So we'll hit callout. There you go.
You want to go into the brick facade too? Or does it matter?
What's that?
The callout.
Do I want it to go into the brick facade?
Yeah. Like on yours, or it just doesn't matter as long as it's around the shaft?
you can always adjust that, right?
Yeah.
So if you said, hey, that's not really the way I want that to work, that's an easy thing to adjust. And we could adjust it by just simply clicking here and dragging it in if that's not where we wanted it. And we're going to rename that typical elevator shaft. And hit OK. Alright, so the next thing in the book is we're going to create and modify a camera view. The camera view with which you have, excuse me. The camera view is the view with which you have by far the most fun. Revit architecture seems to lend itself naturally to this type of view. Taking a camera view essentially tells Revit to look at a certain area from a perspective vantage point, like a section or a callout. Such a view may never see the light of day in terms of going on a drawing sheet. That's actually not true. A lot more 3D drawings are going on drawing sheets because they're easier to generate now. But camera views are perfect to see how a model is coming along from a realistic point of view. Add in a camera view. To create a camera view, follow these steps. Item 1, go to level 1 floor plan. We have to still be on level 1. On the View tab, click the drop-down arrow in the 3D View button and select Camera. Think here for a second. Alright. So when you use this tool, you're going to click where you're standing as if you were actually holding the camera, and you're going to drag out towards what you want to view. And you're going to see a cone that comes out. That cone is your cone of vision. So we're going to pick a point here in the main corridor, and we're going to drag out. You can see as I rotate my target, my cone of vision rotates. So my target I want to put out here. Anything inside that blue triangle is what I'm going to see in my view. When I click, it will automatically take me to a view of that corridor. This is a really great way to check your three-dimensional progress. Because sometimes you'll draw something in plan and go, I don't know if that looks right. You can put a camera view in there very quickly to find out does it look like it's been modeled properly. Unlike when you're placing a section or call, Revit automatically opens the new 3D view. This doesn't mean it automatically has a useful name. In the project browser, you see a new view in the 3D view category. It's called 3D view. Right click 3D view 1. 3D views. So we want to right click this. We want to rename it. We're going to name this East Wing Corridor Perspective. I will tell you by far, 3D views are the ones that end up being 3D view 1, 3D view 2, 3D view 32, because you create them just to look at something quickly, and you never delete them. So if you're creating them just to look at something and you're not going to use it again, delete it so you can keep track of the views you want to keep. On the view control bar located at the bottom of the view, change the view style to realistic. That's this little box here. Right now it's hidden line. I'm going to change it to realistic. This computer's going to think for a minute. And it basically gives you, I won't call this a finished rendering because it's far from a finished rendering, but it gives you kind of a colored view of what it might look like. And we can move through some of these. You can give it a shaded view, which in this particular case I think looks better. You can give it consistent colors. Again, this doesn't look so bad, but there's no shadowing with consistent colors. You can make it look realistic like we did, or you can do ray trace. Now you'll notice ray trace takes a little bit longer to think, and even for the simple view it's going to take a little while to process. Students like ray trace because it looks more realistic, and you can see it says interactive ray trace mode. I'm going to tell you that you do not want to try to model in interactive ray trace mode. It's going to slow your computer down significantly. It gives you an idea of what this might look like as a ray traced rendering. So even though it might look nicer, you don't see any lines, obviously. It's not something you want to try to model in. Does that make sense? It just takes up a lot of processor speed, and you'll start to try to rotate around in realistic ray trace, and it will just bog your computer up. If it bogs your computer up enough, it may crash your, it may actually crash your computer, which if you haven't saved, that's a bad thing. So you can change that right down here again at visual style. So we'll change it back to hidden line, which is pretty much the simplest. The two buttons to the right are the shadow buttons. Basically, sun path on, shadows off. You can turn shadows on or turn them off. This is really great when you're trying to create quick presentation drawings, maybe for studio class or for a client. Exterior elevations. You can easily put shadows on them. It used to be something we had to painstakingly do in Photoshop. You don't have to do that anymore.
So light fixtures actually put off light?
What's that?
Do light fixtures actually put off light? I mean, windows put off light, or is it kind of?
Yes. I mean, you can actually get down to where you're doing lighting calculations in Revit, depending on how much information you put in the program. Obviously, at this point, we haven't placed any light fixtures. And from the corridor, we don't have any exterior walls, so you won't see light coming through. But if you humor me for a minute, I will deviate from the book here and show you that. We go to level 1. There's some windows in here, right? Create a camera. Looking at those windows. Now I'm going to change my cone of vision. I just bought a wide angle lens, right? If I go here to realistic and turn my shadows on, you can start to see. Why are we seeing this line right here? Because there's no roof at this point. You can also see that the windows act as if they're transparent. Now, we'll get further into that later in the semester. You'll get real familiar with working with 3D views. But that was just to answer your question. Do windows show light? Do lights show light? Absolutely, they have the capacity to. So I'm going to close out of that. Well, if you remember earlier, I told you 3D views are the ones that just pile up and pile up and pile up. For that exact reason there. I created that 3D view to show you something, and then I didn't bother to go back and delete it. And if I continue to do that, I'll end up with 3D view 1, 3D view 2, etc., etc. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete it as a good habit to keep my project browser clean. All right. So back to the book. Modifying the camera. After you place the camera in the model, Revit doesn't leave behind any evidence that the camera is there. So for example, can you see the little camera icon? No, but it's there because we know that I still have this view. If you need to make adjustments or see the location from which the view is being taken, perform the following steps. Open the level 1 floor plan. We're already there. In the project browser, right-click the East Wing Corridor Perspective View in 3D View category and select Show Camera. Now I can see my camera, right? Temporarily. And I can adjust it from there. The camera appears in the plan temporarily so you can see it in the view. The camera icon is a triangle and a straight line. You can physically move the camera. You can also adjust the grip in the midpoint of the triangle to swivel and to look further into the model. Makes sense? So I can grab this, and that will change my back view plane This will change my target, which will allow me to swivel or pull it forward or backwards. Pretty simple. Now, I've done that. Let's just say that I've brought this target in like this. I've taken my view extents in. What do you expect will happen? Yeah, I shouldn't see the door anymore, but just to verify that, let's go look. It just looks like it got cut off. So if you notice some lines that just get cut off, what should you be thinking about? I maybe need to go look and see if my camera extents are as far as I need them to be. So to do that, I just go to level 1, come back here, right click, show camera, and drag that out.
And is it the same concept if you leave the little pink dot in the short?
The little pink dot is the target, so that's where your camera is focused. If there's stuff way behind that, it's going to be out of focus. But in this building, there's not stuff that's a far distance out, so you can see I left the camera in the middle of the corridor here, and it didn't really impact the view. But that would be kind of where you were focusing, and then stuff outside of that, far outside of that, would be out of focus. And you can use that to your advantage also. All right, now that we've created a camera view, the next type of view we're going to create is an elevation. I saved the best view, or at least the most popular, for last. Elevations are essential for any project. They're so essential, in fact, that the Revit provides 4 of them before you place a single wall into the model. The 4 shapes that represent a house that were in the model at the beginning of the book are elevation markers, as shown in figure 3.74. These markers are typically handy, but are most certainly now in the way. First thing you need to do is move them out of the way. The second thing you need to do is create 4 new ones. All right, so we're talking about these symbols right here. That's an elevation marker. To start manipulating elevations, follow these steps. Item 1, go to level 1 floor plan. In the eastern part of the corridor is an elevation. You may be a slightly different location than the book's example, but it needs to move nonetheless. See figure 3.74. You're about to move the elevation marker. To do so, however, you need to break down what an elevation marker comprises. It's actually 2 separate items. The square box is the elevation, and the triangle is the part of the marker that activates the view, as shown in figure 3.75. To move this elevation marker, you must pick a window around both items. So see how these are separate? We need to select both of them in order to move it. And this is a major building elevation, so we're going to move it from this point out to here simply by doing something like that. Now the elevation marker is out of the corridor. It's time to make a new one. To do so, you're in the level 1 floor plan and follow these steps. On the View tab, click the elevation button as shown in figure 3.77. We're going to go to View. We're going to click Elevation. In the type selector, make sure exterior elevation is current. Or building elevation, rather. Did I read that wrong? Oh, it says exterior elevation. It's actually been updated to say building elevation as opposed to exterior elevation. This is a minor typo in the book. Everybody with me? All right. Move your cursor around the perimeter of the building. Notice that the elevation marker follows the profile of the exterior walls. So if I click this, building elevation, it automatically kind of wants, see how it's rotating? That's Revit kind of telling you, oh, that's the view you want me to look at, right? It's going to try to orientate itself perpendicular to the exterior elevation. Pick a place for the elevation as shown in figure 3.78 and press escape to terminate the command. We got to press escape twice. When the elevation is placed, select the triangle. You see the same extents window you saw with a section. All right, so this is the sight line of the elevation, and this is the extent. Makes sense, right? We've seen this in plan now. We've seen it in section. It all works the same way. Pick the grip and stretch the elevation past the wall. Well, it's already there, but show you how to do that. We'll just grip it and pull it further. When the elevation is placed, I did that, sorry. In the project browser under elevation, building elevations is a new elevation. Right click it and name it West Wing Southeast Elevation. So let's navigate in our project browser to elevations. See, there's a new elevation here, elevation 1-A. Here's another thing that can very quickly add up. You start dropping, especially interior elevations, and you end up with elevation 23A, B, C, and D. You have no clue what they are. So get in the habit, again, of renaming. And the book has asked us to name this West Wing Southeast Elevation. Hit OK. Open the elevation. There's a couple ways to do that. We could double click here, or we can double click right on this triangle. Looks like an elevation, right? On the view control bar, change the scale to 1/4 of an inch. You notice all the text got smaller. On the view control bar, set the detail level to fine. Save the model. You've added a new exterior elevation. You can add an interior elevation as well. It's just as easy. I'm not sure if it's much more fun, but it is just as easy. Interior elevations. The difference between an exterior elevation and interior elevation is the same as the difference between a building section and a wall section. Both interior and exterior elevations are executed the same way by selecting the View tab on the design bar. The only difference is that you can make a choice between the two in Type Selector in the Options bar. To add an interior elevation, perform these steps. Go to Level 1 Floor Plan. All right, so we'll navigate back to Level 1. On the View tab, click the Elevations button. In the Type Selector, choose Elevation, Interior Elevation. What do you notice right off the bat?
It's a circle.
Yeah, it's a different marker. Hover your cursor in the corridor near a point shown in the middle of figure 3.79. Alright, so they're going to have us do something here. Make sure the arrow in the elevation target is pointing up, and then pick a point along the horizontal corridor as shown in figure 3.79 to place the elevation. Once it's placed, press the escape button twice. You also notice this kind of gave us a little bit of information here that we didn't get on the building elevation. This is elevation 1-A. And if we go to the project browser, what would you expect? Well, first you're going to have a new section, right? Elevations, interior elevations. And you're going to have elevation 1-A. After you place the elevation, select the arrow. Notice that the extents are outside the building. This occurs in most cases. If it doesn't, you're good to go. Alright, so we're going to select the arrow. And look at that, how big that is. Do I really want the interior elevation to be that length? No, I can drag that in and just make it the length of the corridor. And then we're going to go in and rename this. And the book asks us to rename it East Wing Corridor North Elevation. Open the new view called East Wing Corridor North Elevation. Notice the crop region extends all the way up to the parapet. And that's primarily because we don't have a ceiling or a roof in here yet. Do we need all this information? No, so how do we change it? Just grab that and change the crop region, right? Now, if this was an enclosed room, it had a ceiling or a roof on it, the interior elevation would have stopped at the ceiling or roof. And we're going to create many more interior elevations through the course of the semester, so you'll see how that works. Right, so we should look something like figure 3.80. Now we're going to add an elevation marker in the round, what do they call that? East wing entry. So I'm going to navigate back to level 1. I'm going to go to view. I'm going to go to elevation. I'm going to change that elevation, interior elevation, but it should already be an interior elevation because that's the last thing I selected. Okay. Then I'm going to click on this, and you're going to see these little buttons on each side occur. Simply by clicking here, I can add elevations. Maybe. Yeah, it's freaking out again, the resolution on this screen. Oh, you saw how I added those 3 elevations, correct? The same thing, I can click on those arrows, and it's going to give me the extent. I may want this extent to go all the way to the outside wall. This extent, I may only want it to go from here. I don't need it to go all the way across here. And I suggest you get into the habit of cropping these views and adjusting their view ranges right away. And if I want to move all of this, I can move this marker to where it's out of the way of my other information. Elevation properties. With each view comes a new set of properties. For example, when you made the perspective view of the corridor, you set the visual style to shaded, and you turn the shadows on. Normally, in interior elevation, you don't want to do this. Revit allows you to have separate view properties on a view-by-view basis. To access the view properties dialog, follow these steps. On the interior elevation with the 4 arrows, select only the arrow facing up. When we do that, I'm going to pull the properties dialog box out here and expand it. These are the properties of that elevation. Does that make sense? And if I click over here, what happened? Now I'm in the floor plan. These are the properties of the floor plan view. On the properties dialog provides a wealth of information about the view. You have a multitude of options as well. Find the view name option under the identity tag heading and change it to East Wing Entry North Elevation. So if we come in here, the view name is Elevation 1A. And if I look at my project browser, Elevation 1A. Hold on, let me click back here on the elevation. This is the same thing. If I change it here, it will change here. So it asked me to name this East Wing Entry North Elevation. And I hit apply. What happened to my project browser? The name changed, right? Because that's one piece of information that's being accessed from multiple places. Does that make sense? By this point, that should be old information in Revit for you. We already adjusted the view extents. The rest of the chapter asks you to name the corresponding views, and that brings us essentially to the close of chapter 3. Are there any questions?